Tom Brown's Schooldays.
Tom Brown was a kind and happy boy. He was also quite naughty and mischievous at times. He lived with his parents in the English countryside. Tom enjoyed playing with the other boys in his village. At first, Tom went to one boarding school, but later his father sent him to another boarding school. It was in Rugby. Tom felt proud when he saw his new school had such big sports fields. A boy called East became friends with Tom on his first day at school. East advised Tom what clothes to wear. He also warned Tom that sometimes older boys bully the younger ones. He said that the bullies come to the dormitories at night. "The bullies like to toss you in the air using a blanket. It won't really hurt unless you fall on the floor," East said. The school's biggest bully was a boy called Flashman. That night, Flashman and some of his friends came to the dormitory. The bullies pulled a small boy from his bed. "Please don't toss me, Flashman," one small boy cried. "I will be your servant and do errands for you. Please don't hurt me," he said. Some of the small boys hid under their beds, but Tom and East didn't. East was then tossed in the blanket. He was thrown high up in the air, and he landed in the blanket. Tom was tossed next. Tom was about to cry out when he hit the ceiling. He was glad when the tossing finished. But Flashman wasn't happy. He only liked it when he made the boys scream. Suddenly, footsteps could be heard outside the door. Flashman stopped his bullying, and everyone went to sleep. In spite of such an incident, Tom enjoyed doing errands for the older boys. Often he would deliver messages for them. He also cleaned their rooms and brought food and drinks to them. One day, Tom went out with his friends, East and Hall, to play. The boys liked to pretend they were dogs or hares. The dogs would chase the hares. The three boys came back to school late. They had to report to the headmaster. The boys were afraid because they were late for supper. Tom thought it was stupid of them to go to the headmaster looking so dirty, but they had no choice. The boys thought they would be punished. The headmaster might beat them. The headmaster surprised them. He was very kind. The headmaster told the boys to wash themselves and then go to the kitchen to eat some meat and bread. "After you've cleaned up and eaten, please go to bed," the headmaster said. The three boys felt that they were very lucky. Tom had thought that they would receive some kind of punishment. When Tom returned to Rugby School for the new term, there were about 40 boys in his class. Some of them liked to play tricks on the teachers and on each other. They often had to do errands for the big boys. Tom saw younger boys being bullied. "Deliver this message for me or I will beat you," the big boys would say. Flashman and his friends were the worst bullies. One night, while Tom and East were in the study room, Tom said, "Flashman is a coward. I will not do any errands for him." Just then they heard Flashman screaming, "Slave, come here now!" Tom locked the door. East blew out the candles. The bully banged hard on the door. Flashman and his friends tried to kick the door in, but the door was too strong for them to break. "Soon it will be time for bed. We cannot stay here," whispered East. "Flashman will attack us when we go out." They sneaked out of the room and ran away from Flashman. Tom and East told their friends what had happened. All the boys said they would no longer do errands for Flashman. Having been bullied so many times, they could not suffer any more. Later, Flashman ordered Tom to bring him his hat. Tom refused. Again, Flashman and his friends beat up Tom. The young boys took revenge. They made a mess of the bullies' rooms. The boys sometimes placed bets on horses running in the big races. There was a day when Tom got the winning ticket. Flashman ordered Tom to give it to him, but Tom refused. Flashman then dragged Tom away. East tried to pull Tom back, but he was not strong enough. "I will roast you!" shouted Flashman. Tom was held in front of the fireplace. He slowly turned white and began to feel very sick. The heat and smoke of the fire were too strong. East ran off to get Diggs, an older boy and a friend who protected the younger boys. Just as Diggs entered the room, Tom fainted. "He is dying!" cried Diggs. "Get water quickly!" The housekeeper brought water and medicine for Tom. "His clothes are burned," she cried. "Who has done such a bad thing? I will speak to the headmaster about this." But nobody answered. Tom felt much better after a good night's sleep. He and East promised not to let Flashman win. They decided not to tell the headmaster about what had happened. From that day on, Flashman became much quieter. Flashman did not cause so much trouble after that, but he was still angry at Tom and East. But Tom and East began to enjoy their life more at school. Sometimes Tom and East would secretly meet with Diggs in the hallway at night. The boys were all supposed to be in bed. They were not allowed to go into the hallways at night. But some of the boys liked breaking the rules. They saw it as a little adventure. One night, as Tom and East sat in the hall, Flashman came. Flashman did not see Diggs sitting in a corner. Flashman started hitting and cursing the boys. Diggs jumped up from his corner and said to Tom and East, "I think you should stop Flashman bullying you. You boys should fight against him," said Diggs. "I will make sure it's a fair fight." One at a time, Tom and East started fighting with Flashman. First Tom hit Flashman, and then East would hit him. Flashman was big, but he was not at all fit. He was quite slow at fighting. The two boys hit Flashman as hard as they could, but Flashman was bigger than them. Flashman could easily knock the boys down. "This isn't a fair fight," said Diggs. "You are too big for them. They must fight together." Tom and East hit Flashman with all their might. Flashman fell and hit his head. His head was badly injured. Tom and East felt bad. "We are sorry," Tom said. "You will pay for this," said Flashman. Tom had also hurt his head. Flashman stopped bullying after that, but he spread bad rumors about Tom and East. A few months later, Flashman got drunk. It was late at night, and Flashman was outside the school. He had drunk too much and behaved badly. Some boys tried to secretly take him back into the school. One of the teachers saw the boys sneaking into the school with a big box. The teacher asked to see what was in the box. The boys opened the box, and inside it was Flashman. The headmaster had been watching Flashman for a long time. Now it was time to expel Flashman from the school. After Flashman left the school, everybody was much happier. Tom became quite lazy with his studies and sometimes behaved badly. The headmaster was worried about Tom's bad behavior, so he decided to make Tom more responsible. The headmaster secretly arranged to make George Arthur Tom's roommate. George was a sensitive and serious boy, but he suffered from poor health. The headmaster wanted Tom to take care of him. George's life was very sad. George's father had been a very good man. He was a clergyman, but had died some years before. George's mother had also been very sick, but she had cared for her husband up to the very end of his life. George was quite religious, like his father. He liked to talk about God. 2 years went by, and Tom and his friends were now much taller and stronger. George remained a very quiet boy. He was almost 16 years old, but he was still not very healthy. But George was an honest boy and always told his friends what he truly believed. Although Tom and East were still mischievous, George had been good. George's responsible attitude gradually influenced his friends. George became sick one day and was sent to the sick room. Tom asked the headmaster if he could visit George, but was not given permission. One evening, the housekeeper said Tom could visit George. George lay on a sofa. His face was white, and he looked like an angel. George's mother came to the school because she was afraid her son would die. "I'm no longer afraid of dying," said George. "I had a beautiful dream of heaven." George and Tom talked about many things. George told Tom not to cheat at school. "You will be more proud of yourself if you work hard," he said. Tom knew his friend was right. Gradually, George got better. The boys grew up to be fine, strong men. Always they were friends. Tom found out that their friendship had not happened by chance, but that the headmaster had arranged it. Before leaving rugby school, a teacher had told him, "The headmaster was worried about you. He wanted you to become George's friend. He knew that George would be a good influence on you." Tom was moved to hear that. While studying at Oxford University, Tom heard that the headmaster of Rugby School had passed away. The news made Tom feel sad. He had always had a great respect for the headmaster. Tom felt that the headmaster had helped make him what he was. Without the love and guidance of the headmaster, he would not have studied hard. He decided to return to Rugby to visit his old school. Tom planned to pay his last respects to his headmaster. On his return to the school, Tom remembered the happy times from his old school days. He prayed at the grave of his headmaster, saying a final goodbye to his great teacher.